Mass sausage production, which began in the early 1900s, made use of cheaper meat and less of it, so bangers were bulked out with fat and filler. The British sausage went through a difficult period. The art of independent sausage making faded almost to extinction.
Nice body, don't you think, girls?
But in the 1980s, salvation came from a strange quarter.
Everybody calls me Parks. Find your feet. Right.
Fashion photographer Norman Parkinson teamed up with an executive from advertising gurus Saatchi & Saatchi. They came up with an idea that was to send the sausage supersonic. Whilst living in Tobago, Parkinson began to miss his traditional British banger and began making his own to a recipe he'd found in the local library.
When I first met him, he told me that the thing that had disappointed him was, this was mid-80s, that sausages were basically pretty poor quality. And he told me how he'd experimented in Tobago, where he lived, with trying to make sausages. And after a few glasses of wine, I thought, what a great idea, a famous artist making a sausage.
Now you're going to really give a very close. That's right.
And the more I thought about it, the more I thought this was an idea that could run. And being in the advertising business, I thought I've spent my life telling a lot of other people how to sell things and how to do things. And maybe it's time I should try and do it myself.
With an advertising bigwig at the helm, marketing of the famous Parkinson banger was in safe hands.
The packaging was a very sort of contentious issue because we'd been told that you cannot sell a sausage unless people can see it, so it had to be wrapped in cellophane, and we felt fundamentally that that was wrong. So the original packaging designs that we did were based on greaseproof paper, and on the images that we used for the design, people said to us, you can't possibly show pigs because people won't buy sausages if they think they come from these sweet-looking pigs that you've got on here. And basically we said, forget it, we're going to do that.
Once they'd got their packaging right, it was time to create the famous Parkinson Bangers upmarket brand image.
A number of restaurants took our sausages, but we would only let them have them if they put them on the menu as the famous Parkinson Banger, not just bangers and mash. They had to be branded. So we were on the menu at Langhans, at the Ritz, at the Savoy Hotel. I went along to Fortnum & Mason, and they took everything we could make. We moved on, we were in Harrods. We were on Concord, so we were the first supersonic banger, that's for sure.
The Parkinson banger, of course, has its own footnote in the history of the sausage because it was the upmarket gourmet sausage of its day, and possibly was a forerunner for all those ones which we now see, stacked up in supermarket shelves and smart delicatessens all over the place.
So did I.
Yeah, I can take some wine for you. And don't drink it all. Well, me, I'm going to pinch your onions, thank you.
You're always pinching my things.
I know. Now, the onions have gone into the pan that we cooked the sausages and the pancetta. And what we're going to do is mix all these flavours together and raise them off the pan by a deglazing process, which I'm going to do in just a moment. So first, we're going to brown the onions. Now we've browned off the onions, what we're going to do is deglaze the pan with a little bit of balsamic vinegar.
I love balsamic vinegar. It comes from the Trebbiano grape, which is about the sweetest grape you can get, which gives it that gorgeous flavour. See all that steam? That's water evaporating off from balsamic vinegar, which means what's left in the pan gets a really strong flavour.
Basically what we're doing here is cleaning off the pan with all that flavour from the sausages, the pancetta and the onions themselves, and all that flavour is going to go into the sauce. Let me just show you this one just here, because this is 30 years of age.
Ooh, fantastic. The longer you leave these to mature, the stronger the flavour gets and the better the flavour gets, because the molecules in there gradually break down, and the smaller they are, the more easily they evaporate in your mouth, and so the stronger the smell, the better it tastes.
Now this apparently is a remedy.
It's gorgeous.
Now it's not just for savoury dishes or for drinking, you can actually use it in desserts and things like strawberries. Dip one of those into your balsamic vinegar.
That works
Really
so
nice.
well. Hey, we've got some
Love
cooking
it.
to do. It's supposed to be eaten. Now, once we've actually concentrated this balsamic in the pan, I'm going to add a little bit more liquid. So if you like to put some red wine in with our sultanas, raisins and prunes. Now, the red wine is going to rehydrate them. And there's two simple ways of doing it. One, it's a quick version, by whacking it in the microwave for 20 seconds on high. And that is going to warm up the wine and plump the fruit up. Nice quick way of doing it. Or you could leave it aside and let it rest for about an hour and a half, and that will start to absorb the liquid and plump up the fruit exactly the same. Put a lid on and just let that cook for around about 20 to 25 minutes.
Can't wait.
Pretty good, isn't it?
High-quality specialty sausages usually have a large proportion of lean meat, and many are sold without additives. But cheaper bangers stick to regulations governing sausage composition. Pork sausages must contain at least 65% meat, of which only half need be lean cuts.
When you're considering the quality of a sausage, you have to start with the ingredients, and it has to be said that the legal limits in this country are deplorably low. Now, if you have an ordinary pork banger, only 65% of it has to be meat. And let's say it's 3 inches long, and you're going down, say you're taking 2 inches off that. That is sort of acceptable food. So what you're going to ask yourself is, when you look at yourself, what on earth is that bit at the end? You know, what is that made of?
Water is added in a slush ice form, and its function is to act as a solvent. Rusk, it absorbs fat and water. Salt acts as a preservative agent. Protein concentrate. These are sort of animal and plant proteins which are used for creating emulsions, particularly in what they call pre-blends. Polyphosphate. It is synergistic with salt in that it increases the emulsifying properties of it. Monosodium glutamate. It highlights the sort of savoury taste. Sodium metabisulfite. It suppresses the food poisoning organisms particularly. Cochineal. This is a colouring agent which is permitted by law to be used in sausages. Sugar caramelises when it's heated, and therefore the sausages go nice and brown. Ascorbic acid. Antioxidants are put into sausages mainly from the point of view of when they're being frozen, otherwise you get fishy off flavours.
It's time to have a look at those sausages. Ah, they look pretty good. Now, if you find that your sauce is too thin, what I recommend you do is take the lid off, and then you'll start the evaporation process. The sauce will start to reduce, it'll thicken it, and it'll concentrate that flavour. Let's have a look at the potatoes. Now, one way of testing the potatoes is inserting a knife. If the potato lifts up with a knife, then gently falls back down into the water, you know your potatoes are cooked. Kathy, would you like to drain those for me, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Let me check my sausages.
And you don't want to overcook the potatoes, because then you start to use the vitamin C. Just like any other vegetable, the longer you boil it for, the more of the vitamin C you lose.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, at this particular point, put your potatoes back onto heat. There's no more liquid in there whatsoever, don't worry. Put the lid back on and then very, very gently keep shaking them. Now, what's actually happening in there? The moisture's hitting the base of the pan, the evaporation's starting to take place, and what we should have is a nice, light, white, fluffy snow effect around the outside of the potato.
And by getting rid of the moisture in the potatoes, they're more able to take in the fat, like this butter that you're going to add in later. Can I borrow some of that, please? Thank you.
Now, I've got one of my favourite gadgets here. It's called a ricer. All you need to do is simply place the potatoes in the ricer and give it a good squeeze, and out comes that lovely dry potato.
Don't put your potatoes into a food processor, because this is what happens. Those blades violently turning round are actually cutting through some of the starch molecules, and that damages the structure. So what you end up with is something like this. It's a bit like wallpaper paste. You've lost all the nice structure. Alan's method, you don't damage the molecules, and that way you keep the nice, light, fluffy texture.
That's it, and this is ready for the additions now. Would you like to add a little bit of butter in there, if you please, Kathy?
Sure.
Give that a good stir. I've got some horseradish here. There we go. Give that a stir. Now I'm going to add a little bit of cream, room temperature. There we go. Give that a stir for me. The butter will start to melt.
Oh, yes.
You can get that aroma coming through already.
Very
A little bit of black pepper and seasoning in there. And a little bit of salt.
Add the fat and the other ingredients after you've mashed the potato, otherwise it doesn't get evenly distributed.
And that mashed potato I'd be happy to serve anywhere.
Posh sausages may now be fashionable, but there are some places where the good old budget banger has been standard fare for almost 40 years.
My father started off the business in 1966 and he wanted a good name for the cafeterias, a catchy name, a name that would be remembered. So I think the name itself was based on our family name, which is Bacon. So I think he deemed it was quite apt to call it the Super Sausage. I do get called Mr. Sausage more often than not.
The Super Sausage Transport CAF serves 3,200 sausages a week. But it's not just truckers stoking up at breakfast who enjoy a fry-up.
We get a good basis of clientele, families, couples. I think people think it's a bit of a treat, and it's obviously a change from the other fast food outlets that are available, like the burger joints.
In London's West End, Bangers and Mash restaurant R.K. Stanley's serves a range of gourmet sausages made on the premises. Posh sausage and mash has become a food fashion statement.
It's not been trendy to say, well, we're going to a sausage and mash restaurant. Maybe it's just a bit of back to basics, I guess. Where the people are fed up with fancy food that they can't say the name of. On a Friday night, you'll have record company types and media types coming in. You know, we have hen nights, stag nights, and big groups of them coming in for sausage and mash.
Sausages have moved from just being something that you consume in the privacy of your own home without actually confessing to anybody, to a much higher level of public acceptance. It is acceptable, I think, now to serve really good sausages, properly looked after, properly cooked, served with a sauce and garnished with vegetables for dinner. And I don't think people would find it too outlandish to do so.
I have some pretty luxurious ingredients in this Bangers and Mash recipe, so you need to present it with style. I've got a little pillow of mashed potato there, to which I'm going to lay my sausages on the top. It'll look really good. Now, first of all, I'm going to show you the sauce. Look at that. That's exactly spot on. Not too thick, not too thin. And one way of telling is basically inserting the spoon, and it should coat the back of the spoon quite nicely. I also know the sausages are cooked, not because they're brown, but because I've been cooking them for around about 20 to 22 minutes.
And you do want to be a bit careful with pork sausages to make sure they are cooked through. But since they've been simmering, so at 100 degrees centigrade, for this long, they will be cooked properly.
Does that look good? Yes. A bit of sauce there. Little sprig of thyme on the top. Have a taste. Cut into it with a little bite of sausage and mashed potato at the same time.
Make sure I get some of those prunes
And
too.
that sauce. That's good. You've got the acidity running through, you've got the sweetness from the prunes. That's really nice.
It's really good. It tastes very, very meaty. You can tell it's a really good quality sausage and not too much rusk in it.
Is that one of the best Bangers and Mash you've ever tasted?
It is delicious. But the pancetta and prunes, just gorgeous together.
You're watching UK TV, and up next on Food, Flavours of Britain visits the gastronomic hotbed of York. On documentary, Adam Hart Davis snoops around the Bronze Age and what the ancients did for us, while over on Style Gardens, it's Garden Invaders.